Good morning, this is Jack from theartofchart.net, and this is the pre-market recording for the morning of Tuesday, the 21st of July. Right, our disclaimer, with use for educational purposes only, we're here to share our technical analysis with you. We hope you can take some of what we're doing and learn from it, transfer to your own charts. We're not here to issue trading details. Now, interesting question here. Jack, at what point do we consider this a bull market again? Now, there's a couple of things to say here. One, the economy's in the toilet. It's not likely to be emerging from the toilet anytime soon. COVID's going to be likely with us for a year or two. There's tourism's in the toilet. Restaurants going to have trouble. Aircraft, travel, tourism bookings in 96% down in London this year. And frankly, I'm a bit surprised it's no more. We've got Italy and Greece, which both have major debt problems, are very heavily dependent on tourism, much of which will have vanished this year. And so we're looking at a possible impending euro crisis as well. Europe was effectively in a period of long stagnation because of the euro, really before all this started, and it's now really in trouble. This is, I think what we're seeing on equities here is without a doubt the craziest thing I've ever seen happen on equities. This is genuinely insane, but we've seen insane stuff before, and just because it's insane doesn't mean it has to stop right now. If we head up and if we cannot break the daily middle band as support, and it's held pretty nicely the last two times we tested it, then reality is on the next leg up or the one after that, we are going to retest the all-time high on SPX. And the other thing to say is here is NQ is in a bubble here, and while it's pretty obvious it's in a bubble, where do bubbles stop? Good question. Very, very hard to call. It could continue going higher for a while. So the fact that it's crazy doesn't mean it can't get crazier. And we have to just accept that, because that is the way the market is. So is this likely to end well? No. Is it likely to last more than months? I would say no. Could it go higher from here? Yes. And that is a key thing to remember. Okay, now looking at the markets, last night I was talking about the possibility that we'd hit this trend line here, which we haven't quite hit. You can see there's a slight gap. I've got that up in about 32.75 area, and I'm thinking we may well be making an AM high there this morning. Although there's a couple of caveats there, but it's looking okay. Now here, this isn't quite at the bottom of the hour, but one thing I was mentioning to someone I was checking to about an hour ago was what I wanted to see today was a bit of a retracement that was visible on the hourly RSI, so that we could have a divergence when we go back and retest this high, which I'm expecting to see. We have a little bit of divergence here, but it is very weak. I do not like divergence that I have to get out a microscope to be able to check that it is a divergence. It should be visible. We're working on one now. The end of the hour was about here on the RSI. We can set up a decent sell signal here, and we can really set up a decent one on NQ. NQ, I was talking about a retest of this high last night and saying it might need it. It's had it. It went there, it got there, and I'm expecting that to retest too. We've obviously seen a decent move down on the hourly RSI. This can set up a sell signal. I would not be that happy about getting seriously short here or looking for a serious high here without that divergence on NQ, and it looks like we are setting up together. And nice double top set up here. That doesn't mean this double top's going to play out. We have to break some support when we go down. Otherwise, we will come back up. We've seen that twice already in the last couple of weeks, and we could see it again. I think expecting to go down and test support shortly. Will it break? We don't know. We will have to see when we get there. But if it doesn't, then we can go higher. Right, RTY has come back, retested the short-term high, very nice looking double top setup here. We're still on an RSI 14 sell signal here, although it did almost make the possible near miss target. I'm quite liking the prospects for reversal. YM I'm mildly concerned about because this looks like a flag, and I'm wondering whether it needs to retest this high. That's in the 27,000 area and is significantly higher when it is right now. Both YM and RTY have been very muted on this move up, which has mainly been tech and Europe. Europe has needed some more stimulus. There was some more stuff about a vaccine, which personally I think is just fake news, really. But I mean, but you never know. There might be a decent vaccine through. But the thing is, I think an awful lot of people, their main source of information comes from like films. And on films, everyone's looking for the vaccine, and then they get it, and then it's in full production, and everyone has one by the end of the day. That's not actually what happens in real life. Vaccines take a while to produce. They only tend to be effective against one or two variants, and at the moment there are 30 main variants of COVID. So I think they've been making great progress on treatment. And certainly they've been doing very interesting things with plasma, which contains COVID antibodies. The treatment for COVID is getting better and better. I think personally the prospects of a vaccine aren't hot. And I think if we do get a vaccine, then it's liable to be a couple of years before it is readily available. So in the meantime, treatment's getting better, and that is realistic, and that's good, because that means the death rate falls. But it's not actually going to help with avoiding having to get herd immunity. Insofar as herd immunity is possible, but that is another issue. Okay, so that's where we are on equities. Let's have a quick look at the bigger picture. Yesterday I was saying that we needed to avoid a strong close because we would lose the daily sell signal, and we had a strong close and we lost the daily sell signal. We've still got an hourly divergence here. I am looking for a trend line here, and this is one of the first things I'm going to be looking for when we open up. What are the prospects for a trend line here? I've got another one that could come from here. I'm going to be looking for a trend line resistance, and I'm also going to be looking for negative divergence on the 5-minute RSI 14 SPX, and ideally the 15-minute as well. We could easily get that, but again, that would, there's a retesting process. I'm hoping to get an AM high today. This is, as I mentioned, one of the most bearish leaning days of the year. It's 81% bearish closes. Now, that doesn't say anything about the distance that it has to close down, although this is traditionally a very volatile week. And it also means that there's a 19% chance that it closes up. And obviously we're seeing quite a sizable gap up. So, that is very much a real possibility here. But if we are going to turn today, and the rest of the stats for this week are bearish, basically the rest of the stats, historical stats for this week are bearish from now. Into the end of the week. Less so, not as much as today, because today really is one of the most bearish leading days of the year, but nonetheless significant. If we're going to see a decline, there's a nice setup for it here. This is a very good time to do it. Does it get us through support? That is the question. And we're only going to find that out by testing it. So I think there's a good chance we are going to get that test, and then we'll see what happens when we get there. In the meantime, I'm going to be looking at the 5-minute and 15-minute, and I'll share what I've got this morning. We've seen the decline I was hoping to see before the open today, so it could well be, if we go back up, make it, say, 32.75, then we could well see a high there. I'm a bit concerned we might be heading for this trend line here because that looks a bit higher, but I'll be looking at SPX and we will see. This trend line on ES, which is the main one I'm watching here, because this is the classic way rising wedge forms. You break down, you form a new support trend line, and you head back, and you've widened the wedge when you head back and you hit resistance. This is a nice resistance trend line, and it's probably going to hold. Although it's a wedge, we can see an overthrow. We can get a decent looking divergence, but it is easily visible to the naked eye on a move up here, and we can get the same one in Q. So the prospects for setting up something that would look like a decent place to turn are actually pretty good. I'm looking for an AM high, and I'd be surprised to see this turn without one, although it's far from unknown. So, it can happen. Here, for instance, where we had this big move up into the high where we were testing on NQ, there we didn't have any divergence. Really, we failed this sell signal and then fell from there. So sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. I'll be much happier about a decline here if we get it. So we will see. All right, DX. DX has retested this low. We've actually seen some big levels hit overnight across various things. I'll be showing them to you as we go. I am wondering about the possibility of a rally here. We're not seeing any sign of that at the moment, but obviously there's we are testing this level, and we'll see whether we get below it. But we have actually finally reached the retest, which has taken a while. ZB. ZB has not really been going down as ES has been going up. And I think this looks like it's consolidating, waiting for equities to turn so we can do a decent move up. How large the equities turn would be, we would have to wait and see. But if it is a large turn, then this can actually head up to a retest in the 190 area, which we're expecting to see sooner or later. CL finally retested this high, more or less as I was giving up hope that it would ever do so. And it's now up in the main resistance area, which is in the 42 to 42.5 area. I'm expecting it to make a high here. Doesn't have to, but this is the obvious place to do it. Got daily sell signals, got a very nice setup for it. We're now up at historic major resistance and near the top of the breakaway gap. This is the obvious place to do that retracement. I'm expecting to see that, and we don't have currently any 60-minute divergence, so I'd like to see a bit of a pullback and a retest there too. NG. NG might be setting up a little bear flag to come back and retest this low. This is a nice setup. Nice looking channel. Started off with an initial channel that broke up. We've now expanded into a larger channel. The obvious next target within the channel is basically this trend line, which is going to be crossing weekly pivot and monthly pivot as and when we get there. Ideally, it would come back and retest this low, set up a little double bottom, and then head back there, but it doesn't have to do that. GC. GC is on a tear. And I've drawn in the obvious trend line here. It's another expanded wedge like the one we're looking on ES, and I'm estimating that that's currently in about the 1865 area. Now that is an ambitious target. We haven't got any negative divergence at the moment, and that is the obvious trend line target to be going for as we've gone through this retest of the high and gone straight up further at the moment. SI, wow. This is up $2 in 2 days. That is not something you usually see on SI. We currently have very little in the way of negative divergence, and it is spiking right up. I would not get in the way of this, but we may well be seeing a retracement soon. HG has broken up from this trend line here, and I'm wondering about a retest of this high, which it is currently not close to. UUSD. UUSD, no current divergence, still kicking around in this area here. Possible double top setup. GBP USD has gone up through here. The obvious next target, if it's going to continue higher, is the retest of this high up here, just over 1.28. We do have a bit of negative divergence here. We do have a weak sell signal that's fixed on the 60-minute chart. Sorry, I haven't got that marked in. And this could potentially be a double top, although I'm thinking it probably isn't. USD/JPY hasn't gone down with DX much lately, so if we see a rally on DX, there's a risk this is going to spike up from weekly pivot support towards monthly pivot in the 107.97 area. USD CAD has been weaker and is getting closer to a retest of this low, but is still not close. No current positive divergence. Australian dollar finally made the retest of this high here. No current negative divergence, but looking pretty overbought on the 60-minute RSI. NZUSD has gone higher. I was talking about a test the annual pivot, and we are there testing the annual pivot. No current negative divergence. KC. KC, a weak 60-minute sell signal is fixed. That hasn't quite made the target yet. We're back over the monthly pivot and weekly pivot. Ideally, this would be heading lower into the retest of this low, which looks like unfinished business. SB is testing the monthly pivot and converting that to support at the moment. This could be on the way back up. I've got flag resistance. I don't have a decent trend line at the bottom, but this could be a Megaphone support trend line, but it's not anchored, so I haven't got it marked in. This could be heading back for this trend line here, which is in the 1225 area. If it broke above that, that would open up a retest of the high at 1240. CC. CC, this could be an inverted head and shoulders that has formed here and broken up. So I'm watching that. We've got a little bit of negative divergence, but not really much. If this heads up, then this would have a target. Well, monthly pivot would obviously be first resistance, but this could be heading up into about the 2335 area. Wheat. Went lower, broke the support trend line. The sell signals made target. I don't really have a target for this to go lower. This could just head straight back up from here. No currently no sell signals made target. Corn hasn't quite retested this low. I've got a possible 60-minute buy signal brewing. If it comes up from this low here, this will look like a flag, and the next obvious target would be the ideal flag resistance, which would be in about the 335 to 6 area, just over the monthly pivot. Soy seeing a bit of a pullback. The sell signal made target. Doesn't need to go any lower than this. Possible head and shoulders forming, but nothing particularly firm. Live cattle. No obvious reason to turn here as far as I can see. I quite like this trend line up here in about the 108.7 area. This may be heading to get it. Lean hogs. maybe breaking below flag support. This isn't a decent pattern, really. So I'm not reading too much into it. No current divergence. All right, what questions have we got today, guys? On August. Friday the 13th, 1971, Richard Nixon removed the gold standard, thereby forbidding foreign governments from exchanging dollars for gold. Yeah, that was because of de Gaulle. He was sending tankers over with gold. He also froze wages and prices. On the next trading day, the Dow gained 33 points, which is the largest one-day move ever on the Dow. As you well know, markets can display varying degrees of irrational exuberance. I would, if I could, describe this in a completely different manner. Perhaps good luck. Well, I think irrational exuberance is a thing. It can last a while. On bubbles, that they're going to fail is obvious. When they're going to fail tends to be tricky. So we've got a nice setup for a retracement here. I think we're going to see a retracement. How far that retracement gets? Well, we've got support in the daily middle band. It's held twice on recent tests. It could hold again. And if it did hold again, then I think the retest of the all-time high would, at that stage, potentially be in range. And I wouldn't be astounded to see it. Or at least I wouldn't be more astounded than I would be to see it up here at all. I mean, by the time we got to this June high, I was expecting to see the retest, and it was always possible the retest would continue running up into the retest of the all-time high, which is insane. But, insane something we've been getting more used to lately in recent years, and there's an awful lot of money coming into the market. The Fed really is nakedly supporting the market and has been for years. This is a recipe potentially for crazy. We can see crazy. So could we go and retest the high from here? Yeah, I think we could. And if we hold the daily middle band and strongly next time, I'll be at the stage where I'll be thinking odds on the next move up. And can this last? In the economic news likely to get over the next few months, I don't see how it's possible now. But equally, it's a question of when exactly. The old saying is the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. It tends not to be a great idea to stand in front of the train and saying you must stop here. Often it won't. That's skew index stand, as mentioned in the past, is back over 145. Do you put much weight in that? Some, it tends to deliver. Is it an exact tool? No, it's just another indicator in the box. But I think an awful lot of people are very, very wary. Certainly anyone who's, the thing is, in the longer term, the market is dependent on the economy. The economy, we're looking at potentially the largest and deepest recession since the Great Depression. And really, if they screw up the way they manage this COVID process and the ongoing process of COVID and the management of the infections and the flattening of the curve, if this gets screwed up, this could potentially turn into a Great Depression. They really, really need to not screw this up. So is there any justification for market prices being up here in this environment? No, I don't think there is. But it doesn't mean it's got to turn right here. So we always need to be wary. I really like the setup for a retracement here. I think we're going to go back and test the daily middle band in all probability. And at that stage, we will see whether the daily middle band holds, because if it does, that opens the high retest. So not necessarily on the next move up, maybe the next move up after that it opens it up. Because at the end of the day, just because it's crazy doesn't mean it's got to turn. The daily middle band closed yesterday at about 3145. On SPX, I think. Am I right? 3145, yeah. That is support. We held it here, we held it here. These are rough holds, but good visual holds. It's that is main support here, and unless that breaks, no downside below it opens up. So that would leave support in about the 3140 to 60 area, depending on how fast we reached it. And at that stage, we would be reaching it, and I would be considering very seriously the possibility it was going to hold. And if it held, as I said, that opens potentially the high retest. The other thing we're looking at here is NDX. NDX is on a tear. I still think this is probably an overthrow, but it doesn't have to be. We've got some nice negative divergence here, but this is genuinely absolutely crazy. But Nonetheless, it is what it is. Tech's huge, and tech is one reason the SPX is back up here, because four tech stocks are now 50% of the SPX, and that's why we saw something like yesterday where it was basically all tech. So RTY and YM barely moved. NQ was going to the moon, and SPX had a strong day. SPX is basically half tech now. So to a certain extent, SPX isn't going to see a big decline until tech turns. And as I said, it's pretty hard to call where a bubble finishes, so we'll see. All right, guys. Anyway, market has opened. Let's get on it. I am liking a low here and then an AM high. We will see whether we get that. I'll catch you guys later. All right, cheers.